Hello everyone. It's such a joy to see you again in a new video on my channel. Today, we'll continue following the emotional journey of Hoai Ca and Hung, two ordinary yet strong-hearted people who are doing everything they can to bring laughter and hope back to little Tony. In this episode, there will be moments that leave you speechless, tears mixed with faith, as Hoai Ca, Hung, and even do continue to overcome challenges together, searching for the miracle that could heal their beloved son. Though the rain outside hasn't stopped, the flame of love inside their small home still burns quietly and steadfastly. Stay with me until the end of today's video to find out what awaits them next. And don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment to support this little family. Morning sunlight gently spread across the village road after several days of rain. The last drops of water clung to the banana leaves, shimmering like tiny glass beads. From afar came the sound of a rooster crowing, blending with the cheerful voices of children playing in the kindergarten yard. Hoai Ca slowly walked, holding Tony's hand. The little boy toddled beside her, pointing at the small puddles along the path, babbling short, broken sounds that only his mother could understand. She bent down, wiped a few splashes of water off his pant legs, and smiled softly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Be good at school today, alright?" At the school gate, Ms. Lean, Tony's kindergarten teacher, greeted them with a warm smile. "He's improving so much, Ms. Ca. He can sit still in class now, and he's starting to focus better." Hearing that, Hoai Ca froze for a second. Her eyes softened, and a quiet warmth bloomed in her chest. She stood still, watching Tony run into the classroom, his tiny backpack swaying behind him. The boy turned around and waved. "Mom. Mommy." Just two simple, clumsy words, but they made Hoai Ca's heart tremble. She had been waiting for that sound for so long, and today, it came naturally, like a small miracle. She lingered at the gate for a while, her gaze following his little figure blending into the crowd of children. A breeze from the field swept by, carrying the scent of dry straw and damp earth, soft and gentle, like a whisper. She took a deep breath, and a delicate yet radiant smile bloomed on her lips. At the end of the road, Hung was already waiting beside his old motorbike. When he saw her coming, he got off, opened the compartment, and handed her a bottle of water. "Here, drink a bit, the sun's coming out." Hoai Ca took it, nodding, her eyes still glowing with joy she couldn't hide. He looked at her, smiled faintly. "See? I told you, our boy's amazing. We just have to believe in him, and he'll make it." She didn't answer, only returned his smile with a warm, gentle look. Under the clear blue sky, the distant fields shimmered in lush green. And that little village road, for the first time in many months, seemed to glow with hope once more. In the late afternoon, after a day of market errands and fieldwork, Hoai Ca and Hung once again sat beside Tony at his little study table. The breeze from the rice fields drifted in, carrying the scent of dry straw and wood smoke, slipping through the old window frame and making the faded curtain sway gently. A warm yellow light spread across the worn wooden table. On it lay the notebook that Dew had left behind, still marked with Tony's tiny handprints, and a few pages smudged with ink from his clumsy attempts at writing. Hung sat across from him, leaning forward to guide the boy's hand, while Hoai Ca sat beside them, her eyes filled with a mix of patience and tender love. "Try reading this one, son." "What letter is this?" Hung asked softly, his voice gentler than ever. Tony pursed his lips, tilted his head in thought, then stammered. Just a single sound, yet the world seemed to pause. Hoai Ca covered her mouth, eyes glistening with tears, while Hung let out a soft laugh, one filled with both joy and emotion. He gently patted Tony's head. "Good job, my boy. You did it." The little boy grinned, cheeks flushed pink, his bright eyes sparkling like tiny stars. Hoai Ca looked at him, then at Hung, her heart overflowing with gratitude, because despite all the worries and hardships, they were walking this path of hope together, one small step at a time. Outside, the sun slowly sank behind the line of bamboo trees. The golden glow of dusk filled the room, reflecting on their faces, faces marked with fatigue, but also with love and a quiet faith that tomorrow, Tony would say even more, even clearer. Their laughter blended with the evening birdsong, echoing across the peaceful countryside. It was an ordinary night, yet for them, it was unforgettable. The day when the very first letter, A, opened up an entirely new world. As time went by, Tony began to call out, "Mom," and he could look straight into someone's eyes when spoken to. Every morning, his laughter rang out earlier, brighter, like a small bell awakening the whole house. At school, Ms. Lean held Hoai Ca's hand, her eyes full of joy. "If he keeps progressing like this, in a few months he'll start speaking more, and his responses will be much quicker, too, Ms. Ca." Hoai Ca couldn't find any words to reply, she simply nodded. Her eyes glistened, not from sadness, but from a quiet happiness rising within, the kind she had prayed for so many long days and nights. She looked down at Tony running around the schoolyard, his hair messy across his forehead, his smile as bright as the morning sun. That afternoon, Hung came home early from work. He parked his motorbike by the porch, and the moment he stepped inside, he heard Tony's little voice calling from the living room. "Dad. Mom. Daddy." The words were still imperfect, but enough to make him freeze in place. Hung looked at Hoai Ca, and for a brief second, neither of them spoke. Then both burst into smiles, gentle and full of warmth that reached their hearts. That evening, dinner was quiet. No one said much, only the soft clinking of the spoon against the bowls, Tony humming tunelessly as his mother coaxed him to eat, and the tender looks they shared across the table. Outside, the breeze from the fields carried the scent of fresh straw, while flickering lamplight cast soft shadows on the wooden walls. Everything was so simple it might have seemed ordinary. Yet to Hoai Ca and Hung, it was nothing short of a miracle. The miracle born from months of not giving up. From love and patience that had finally blossomed into the laughter of their little boy, Tony. Sunday morning, the sky was clear, the wind soft and cool. After days of rain, the heavens seemed freshly washed, stretching blue and endless without a single cloud. Behind the house, the rice field still shimmered with morning dew, each droplet glinting like crystal under the early sun. Birds chirped on the bamboo line, chicks pecked playfully around the yard, and water trickled gently from the well into a clay jar, all weaving together a rare, peaceful melody of rural life. Dew had the day off from work, and Tony's teacher, Ms. Lean, had given him the weekend off too. Carrying a bag of pastries and a few oranges, Dew walked into Hoai Ca's yard with a cheerful grin, almost like a child himself. "How about we take Tony to the park today? Let him get some fresh air. Poor kid's been stuck at home for too long." Hung, who was patching up his work shirt, looked up and smiled. "Yeah, it's been a while since we took him anywhere. He'll love it." Hoai Ca glanced at the two men, hesitant for a moment, then nodded. She knew Tony needed days like this, to feel the world, to know that love surrounded him everywhere he went. They packed up neatly. Hung brought a bottle of water, Dew carried the bag of snacks, and Tony hugged his favorite teddy bear, the one he never went anywhere without. The old motorbike coughed to life, rumbling out of the narrow alley. Sunlight flickered through the bamboo canopy, dancing across their clothes as they rode. Tony sat in the middle, holding onto Hung's waist, his little hair tuft fluttering in the wind. He laughed out loud, babbling happily, making both men glance at each other and chuckle. At every turn, the fields unfolded, vast and green. The distant sound of harvesters echoed, mingling with the faint scent of fresh straw. Dew slowed the bike, worried the wind might be too cold for Tony. No one spoke, only the soft rush of air and the boys' laughter filled the space, blending into the quiet beauty of the countryside. When they arrived at the small park in town, the weather was perfect. Purple blossoms from the crepe myrtle trees scattered like silk across the paths. The moment Tony got off the bike, he ran straight to the slide, climbing up and down, falling and getting up again without a single complaint. He laughed, that pure, sunlit laughter that seemed to brighten everything around him. Other children soon gathered, joining in, and the playground burst into the joyous chorus of little voices. Hung sat on a bench beside Dew, holding a bottle of water, eyes never leaving his son. His voice softened, tinged with emotion. He's so much livelier now. Just a few months, and look at him. Du stayed silent for a while before replying quietly. Yeah, all a kid really needs is love. That's enough for them to grow. You see, it doesn't take much, just someone to be there. He looked at Tony, his eyes glinting with emotion and something heavier, regret. Perhaps, deep inside, Du still carried the pain of lost years, the guilt of a father who'd once missed being part of his child's life. Hung noticed but said nothing. He simply nodded, offering a gentle, sincere smile. They sat side by side, two men, wordless but sharing the same wish, that Tony would grow up safe, surrounded by love, never by absence. After a while, Tony came running back, his face flushed red from the sun, sweat beading on his forehead. He stretched out his hand, voice small but clear. Dad, water. Just two short words, yet the world seemed to stop. Du froze, his hand trembling midair. He looked at Hung, then at Tony, eyes shining. Hung smiled, the soft smile of a father, filled with indescribable happiness. He handed Tony the bottle, patting his head gently. Good job, my boy. Du turned away, pretending to look up at the sky to hide the sting in his eyes. He knew, though he was no longer a father in name, his love for Tony would never fade. The afternoon sun dipped low, scattering golden light across the park. Tony kept running and laughing with the other children, his voice echoing through the breeze that rustled the trees. And there, on the bench, Hung and Du sat quietly, smiling, the kind of smile born from people who had endured too much pain and finally learned how simple true happiness could be. As the golden light stretched across the quiet countryside, no one spoke another word. Only the sound of a child's laughter, the whisper of wind through leaves. And a quiet, spreading joy. As if life itself, after all its storms, had finally decided to smile back at them. It was a sunny weekend morning. The road leading up to the town was still touched by a thin veil of early mist. Dry leaves twirled gently in the breeze before landing softly on the pavement. Hung started the engine of his old motorbike. Hoai Ca sat behind him, holding little Tony close in her arms. The boy rested his head on her shoulder, eyes sparkling, lips curved into a faint smile. From afar, the sound of roosters mixed with the lively hum of the morning market, a familiar symphony of rural life awakening to a new day. Du was busy that day, working on a construction site in a nearby commune. Before leaving, he had called Hung. Remember to tell me the moment you get the results, okay? I'm praying for good news, you know what this means to me. His voice was hoarse from dust and wind, yet full of hope and worry intertwined. Hung smiled warmly. Don't worry. If there's good news, you'll be the first to know. The bike rolled slowly through the bamboo groves, over a small hill, and along a clear, murmuring stream. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the trees, glinting off Tony's hair like threads of gold. Hoai Ca raised her hand to shield him from the sun, and a strange peace filled her heart. She had taken him to so many checkups before, so many moments of fear, disappointment, and forced smiles to stay strong. But today, for the first time, all she felt was faith. The clinic was bright and spotless. The elderly doctor who had been following Tony's case from the start greeted them with his usual kind smile. Well, here we are again, checking on our little warrior's progress, aren't we? Tony hid shyly behind his mother at first, but moments later, he peeked out and grinned, reaching his tiny hand forward to wave hello. The doctor blinked in surprise, then his face lit up with delight. This is remarkable progress. His reflexes are quicker, he can focus now, and look, real eye contact. Keep this up, and in just a few months, he'll catch up with the other kids his age. Hoai Ca pressed a hand to her lips, trying to hold back her tears, but they still fell. All the exhaustion, the endless nights, the fears, the tears, they seemed to melt away in that single moment. Hung placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. His eyes were soft, proud, the quiet pride of a father who never gave up. Tony sat on the chair, smiling brightly, clutching the balloon the doctor had given him. Afternoon light streamed through the window, painting his little face in gold. Hung and Hoai Ca watched their son, eyes full of quiet, unspoken joy, the kind of happiness words could never capture. When they left the clinic, a light breeze stirred the air. Hoai Ca held Tony's hand as they walked down the sunlit sidewalk, her heart lighter than the drifting clouds. Behind them, Hung pushed the motorbike, watching his wife and child laugh together, and felt warmth bloom in his chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, they weren't talking about illness or fear. They spoke of tomorrow, of dreams, and of laughter. On the road home, Tony pointed at the sky, his small voice piping up. "Mom, the sky's beautiful." Hoai Ca looked down at him, and once again, tears fell. But these were the tears of the purest kind of happiness. After the checkup, Hoai Ca excused herself to step outside for a moment. She walked down to the restroom at the end of the corridor, where the pale white fluorescent light reflected off the damp tiles. The sound of running water echoed softly, steady and calm. She leaned over the sink to wash her face, her hands trembling slightly, perhaps from the emotions that still lingered after hearing Tony's results. As she stepped back out, a cool draft swept through the hallway. She lifted her head, and froze in place. On one of the benches near the pharmacy counter sat a thin woman in a dark brown coat, her hair streaked with gray. She was looking down at a stack of papers in her lap. That face, lined with age, weary and familiar, Hoai Ca recognized it instantly. Her heart tightened, her feet rooted to the cold tile floor. It was Hung's mother. The older woman looked up, her deep eyes widening briefly in shock as they met Hoai Ca's gaze. For a moment, everything went still. The hallway fell silent except for the soft whir of the ceiling fan and the sharp scent of antiseptic hanging in the air. She froze, then quickly turned her eyes away. Her hands trembled as she folded her medical papers, trying, and failing, to hide her unease. Hoai Ca stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Be back, bac kung den kam." The woman pressed her lips together. When she finally looked up again, her expression was weary, but behind that fatigue was a cold, guarded tone. "Don't tell Hung you saw me." Her voice was low and raspy, but firm, carrying an authority that made the air feel heavier. "I'm only here to pick up medicine. Once I'm done, I'll leave. If you say anything, you'll regret it." Hoai Ca stood frozen, unable to respond. The woman didn't wait for an answer, she turned quickly, the plastic bag in her hand rustling sharply as it brushed against the chair. Her silhouette disappeared around the corner, leaving behind a long, sterile hallway filled with cold air and silence. Hoai Ca watched her go, clutching her purse tightly. Inside, old memories came flooding back, the times Hung spoke of his lonely childhood, the way he fell silent whenever his mother was mentioned, and the quiet sorrow he had never put into words. A breeze swept through the hallway, rustling the curtain by the window, carrying with it the scent of disinfectant and chill. Hoai Ca closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but her heart still raced uncontrollably. From down the hall came Hung's voice, warm and familiar. "Ca oi. M zong chua." Startled, she quickly wiped her face and forced a small, trembling smile. "Mra nai day," she called back. On the ride home, the sun was already dipping low. Golden light filtered through the trees, casting soft patterns across her pale, thoughtful face. Tony slept in her arms, his breathing gentle and calm. Hung drove with a light-hearted tone, his voice calm and relieved. "The results are good, honey. Don't worry anymore, Tony's really improving." Hoai Ca nodded, murmuring a quiet, "yeah," but her gaze remained distant. In her mind, the image of that woman lingered, her eyes, her voice, that cryptic warning. A faint unease crept into her heart, this wasn't over yet. And somewhere beyond the village road, the evening clouds were beginning to gather. As if a new storm was quietly rising, ready to test the fragile peace they had just begun to find. Thanks to love and the strength of those who stood together, Tony is slowly recovering. Every step he takes, every word he speaks, is proof of all the days and nights they refused to give up, of Hoai Ca, hung, and even do. That joy, at last, seemed enough to soothe the wounds of their past. But, behind today's smiles, a shadow has quietly returned. The woman from long ago, Hung's mother, has reappeared, her eyes filled with calculation and her voice sharp with warning. What does she want? Why is she hiding the truth from her own son? And can Hoai Ca keep this secret buried, when her heart trembles between fear and faith? Beneath the calm of their seemingly peaceful days, a storm is beginning to rise. Will this fragile happiness be strong enough to withstand what's coming next? Stay tuned for the next episode, where the truth behind Hung's mother will finally begin to unfold. And love, once again, will be tested on the thin line between forgiveness and the past.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Bây giờ là buổi tối 9 giờ rồi và mình vừa mới làm xong video Lý Hoai Ca của ngày hôm nay. Và bây giờ là mình uống thuốc trước khi đi ngủ. Hôm nay thì mình đang bị bệnh. Hôm nay phải nói là do cái thời tiết nó thay đổi, cơ thể rất là mệt luôn, nhưng mà mình vẫn luôn cố gắng để có thể hoàn thành video sớm nhất có thể để có thể đăng tải lên cho mọi người. Mình hy rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh của mình nhiều hơn và giúp cho kênh mình ngày càng phát triển hơn, thì đó cũng là một cái động lực rất lớn để mình có thể cố gắng mình ra nhiều video hơn và hay hơn. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi đến cuối video. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại trong những video sau.